Good afternoon, everybody. 15 minutes about copyright. Well, I spend a whole semester on this usually, so this is going to be a challenge, but my name is Jeffrey Izzo. I'm the chair of music industry studies at California State University in LA. Yay. And I'm a lawyer. So 15 minutes about copyright. Like I said, that's a tough nut to crack. So I had some ideas what to talk about, but let me take 2 minutes to see what do you guys want to hear about. This is all indie musicians. So what are your concerns when it comes to protecting your work, using other works? I was just talking to my friend over here, Joe, and we were talking about grabbing stuff off of YouTube or putting stuff on YouTube. Let me just go around the room and see what you want to hear about for 15 minutes. I'll try to fit it all in. So you guys have anything in mind? You're just here for the food. Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to just give me an idea what their concerns are? Okay. Well, what is copyright? Copyright essentially is the right to protect your creative works. And with that comes, with great power comes great responsibility, as the saying goes. So in the States, okay, so let me just go back, just rewind a couple of inches on the tape. Every country has its different copyright laws, all right? And there is some kind of, there's a treaty that creates a uniformity of those laws. But everybody's, all countries are different. It's called the Berne Convention. It was a treaty that sort of made sure that people who are, countries that are signatories to the treaties had some kind of uniformity and predictability in case there was a dispute down the road and the protections that were available, okay? So in the States, UK and the States are probably the two of the most important copyright, statutory schemes, I'd say. We say that the copyright law grants the creative person a statutory monopoly. So we know what a monopoly is, right? It's not the game. Well, it is the game. But, a monopoly is when you have one company has control over an entire market, basically. So why do they call copyright law statutory monopoly? Because the statute, the copyright statute, and this is probably true in the UK as well, says you write a song, you've got copyright protection, now you own the market for that song against all others. And that's why it's a monopoly. So, of course, a lot of the copyright law erodes that monopoly, for there's exceptions like fair use and fair dealing in the UK. But so protecting those rights are all important. And it's hard in this day and age, as Joe and I were just talking about, to protect these rights because it's so easy for someone to steal them. 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was no YouTube, there was no digital distribution of music, there was nothing. There was just, you went in to the record stores, as we all know, and bought a record, and maybe you made a cassette tape of it. If you know what a cassette tape is, that's digging up ancient history. But now you go onto YouTube and you could just download something, or and just put it in, or download a clip, edit it, and put it in your YouTube clip. No, or someone can do that to you. That's a no-no. So what do? Well, I don't want to just talk about YouTube today because that's a whole nother that's an area unto itself. But here's I will say this, because YouTube and TikTok these days, part of that monopoly that you get from being the copyright owner of a piece of music is that you have different rights that are attached to that music. So what do I mean by different rights? Well, you have the right to record it and release it and distribute it and reproduce it. You have a right to let someone put it in their film or their television show or their Netflix movie or whatever. So if you're watching YouTube, just scrolling through it and going down the rabbit hole of if you like this, try this on the side, on the right-hand side there, which, I've stayed up many late nights. I want to see this interview with Randy Newman, because, I haven't seen this one yet. Well, there are two rights that attached to a YouTube. Now, I'll pick YouTube because we have limited time, but it's everybody knows YouTube and TikTok these days. So what are those rights? Well, when the music video, let's say, we'll use a music video as an example, is blasting through your computer speakers or through your headphones, well, there's two things that are happening there. You're listening to the music, so that's what we call a public performance right. So your PRO, if you're a public, performing rights organization, in the US we have ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and GMR, and a couple of smaller ones. Here you have PRS. If you're registered with them, which you should do, you're going to get a royalty. And YouTube will collect it, will give it to PRS or your PRO, and then you'll get a royalty. And that's just kind of an automatic thing if you're signed up. However, because your music is now accompanying moving pictures, there's also a synchronization issue, a synchronization license. And what happens is that people just put things up on YouTube and I was gonna say Yoo-hoo, which is an old chocolate drink in the States. And they think, okay, well, yeah, the PRO, I could do this, whatever. So I'm gonna do this cover of Stairway to Heaven. Or, name your famous song. I should be fine. Here's a picture of my, here's a video of my cover band playing Stairway to Heaven in our, at our last gig. Well, performance rights, performance license, performance royalties wise, you're fine. Because YouTube will collect that, give it to, they've paid the license to the PROs, and the PRO will pay Led Zeppelin or Jimmy Page or wherever for the performance of that song. However, because you're putting Stairway to Heaven you're synchronizing it with moving images, well, that's a whole nother license. And that in itself can trigger a takedown notice. Does everybody know what a takedown notice is? Okay. So when you're putting stuff up on YouTube, or if you see something on YouTube that has your music in it, well, the big issue is whether a sync license has been issued. And that is magnified if you're, let's say, showing home movies or something, or a home video, and you have the recording of Stairway to Heaven accompanying your video. Well, now you have two issues. You have the sync license issue, and now you have the master use issue, because the master use, again, the copyright law if you own the song or the master, the recording, you have control over that, and only you can give permission to people to use it unless it falls under one of the several, at least in the States, one of the several exceptions to that. So my advice to people is always to, if you're gonna put something up, just make sure if you're using other people's creative product that you're clearing it, all right? Because you can run into problems. You can get a takedown notice, or let's say, again, Joe and I were talking about interpolating or sampling certain things. Sampling is basically, well, we all know what sampling is. And interpolating is like sampling, except you're using not the recording, but you're using just like the underlying composition or the words, like the Martin Luther King speech we were talking about. You have to be careful with that because that stuff requires permission. Someone owns something unless it's in the public domain, which doesn't happen for many, many years. So, again, if it's your original music and your original music video, it's not a problem because you own it, you can do whatever you want with it. But as soon as you start using other stuff, or again, if you see other people using your stuff, then you really have to get on it. There's a famous case in the States that involved, we all know who Prince it was, right? I'm assuming. He had a song called Let's Go Crazy, one of his big hits. And a mother from the Midwest or somewhere, just somewhere in the United States, put a 27-second video of her baby, her toddler, dancing to 27 seconds. I say, 27 seconds, not minutes, to Let's Go Crazy. Cute, right? Oh, how sweet. Everybody wants to do that. Well, Prince's people got wind of it, and it triggered a lawsuit that went on for about 5-6 years with appeal, with liability and damages and appeals and everything like that. And she eventually got use of it, through fair use, which in the UK you have fair dealing, which is similar. It's certain types of uses are okay without permission, but they're very limited on the type of uses that both fair use and fair dealing cover. But it was expensive. And she had to take it down, she put it back up, she took it down, she put it back up, appeal after appeal. Finally, they settled, I think. But again, the key is when you are using other people's material, make sure you get the proper permissions. Another issue that, that we were just talking about, my friend here and I was helping a friend who's a documentary filmmaker clear some uses for music, mostly music, for a film he was doing. But he also wanted to clear, use a film clip of, it was a story about inmates, about prison inmates, about finding Jesus in prison. It was this, because in the States at least, that's a big deal, like, prisoners seeing the light, being converted. So one of the prisoners that was a subject of the story, we used to play college football. And he was a hero. And there was this footage of, the UCLA game or something, some big Alabama game where he threw I'm just making this stuff up, but it was something like he threw the touchdown, American football. They wanted to use like a minute of that showing his heroics. To clear it with the TV station that owned the rights, it was one of the big networks in the States, was several $1,000s. And so he couldn't do it. And if he had done it, then he would have been embroiled in a lawsuit because they would have gotten wind of it. Here's the other thing about, because he asked, now they know what's going to happen. Maybe if he didn't ask, but I don't like, that's unofficial legal advice. Always ask. Never just do it and hope you don't get caught. Richard Nixon, one of our famous presidents, he had I won't say the other one today, the other, that's even worse than he is, but I won't mention his name. More recent. Nixon has a famous quote saying his biggest crime was that he got caught. And that's what happens with copyright law a lot because, you're a struggling musician, you want to sample something. I mean, sampling is where all of this comes into play because, you're sampling something without permission, you're breaking the law, basically, because you're violating two copyrights, the sound recording and the underlying composition of the song. And people just, who wants to spend $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 to clear 18 seconds or 7 seconds of a song, so I'll just do it, maybe no one will notice. And yeah, sure, why not? But if they do notice, you can get in trouble. So, and again, if someone's doing it to you're sampling your music, same thing. You want to try to keep tabs on what's going out there. And it's hard these days because music is disseminated so widely and so easily and so frequently that, Prince happens to have the people to do that, or had the people to do that, probably still does. But most of us don't have time or can't pay people to sit down at a computer and search the cyberspace looking for copyright violations. We don't have those resources. And YouTube doesn't have the obligation to report it unless they find out about it. But it's always good to know what your options are. So, the takedown notice, obviously, but if they continue and put it back up, then there's always a way to, take it to the next step, which unfortunately involves lawyers and litigation and everything like me. Is my 15 minutes of fame just about up? I don't know. Anybody have a question before we, yeah? What, yes, no? Continue? Yeah, Joe.
If you are trying to release a track that is, the contracts are lost in the midst of time, would it be fair to offer full publishing credits and put the money in an escrow account, so if the copyright holder comes forward, or the estate, you can hand that money over?
In one sense, yes. That's like a good sort of like penitent way of going forward, you know. I don't know who you are, but I'm going to put the money aside. As a matter of fact, there's a famous fair use case, one of the most famous cases in U.S. Supreme Court history, that involved Pretty Woman, the song, the Roy Orbison song, and Two Live Crew, the early rap group from the 90s, did a version of it, and they were refused permission. And this was sort of like that, but they were refused permission. They knew who the publisher was. They were going to attribute it, and they put the money in escrow, like you said. It doesn't make a difference, because the thing about, and here's the other thing about copyright. This is a good way to sort of kind of wind up, because I'm going to be winding up soon, I assume. Always remember the difference between rights and royalties. They're separate. So yeah, you can put aside that money just in case, but the short of the story is they still need to give you the permission. It has nothing to do with the money. So, and that's another sort of a myth that I kind of like talk about in my classes. I teach copyright. Just because you're attributing another author, or someone's attributing you, or they're not making any money from it, is completely irrelevant. It comes into play if a lawsuit happens and then we're trying to figure out, well, what do I, and the defendant is liable, and they're well, how many millions do I owe you? Yes, was it on purpose? Did you do it without me knowing, et cetera, et cetera? But as far as the actual liability and whether you infringed on someone's copyright or someone infringed on your copyright, whether they're making money or whether they, you see on YouTube a lot, I don't own the copyright to this. This is, Jimmy Page. I don't know, I always think of Stairway to Heaven, because everybody knows that song. That means nothing. It's the permission unless it falls under one of the exceptions. Any quick questions? Because she's giving me the evil eye, Shannon over here. Any one last question for anybody? If you want to talk to me here or privately, or just I'll give you a card. Again, we have a master's program. If you've gone uni already, you can come there and learn all about this stuff from me. But yeah, well, thank you. I was kind of going here and there, but it's hard to zero in for 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, come to me. If you want a card, to email me or call me or whatever, I'm happy to share that. And I won't even charge you, even though I'm a U.S. lawyer. And some of us have hearts. Thank you.